Service. I'd like to welcome you today to the Little Bighorn. Ma'am, can you come off the masquerade? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the National Park Service, I'd like to welcome you to Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. My name is Michael Donahue. I'm a seasonal ranger here just for the summer. My profession is I'm a painter and an author and a college professor from Temple, Texas. I come up here to get out of Texas heat. Sometimes it works, like today. And I've been here as a seasonal ranger for 27 summers. I'm the longest serving seasonal ranger here. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I never get applause.
Well, if you have Texans here, maybe you
Well, great. But after my talk, I'll stand around and answer any questions. This is going to be kind of an abbreviated talk, although I'll cover most of the material here. There is another ranger talk on the patio down below at 1 o'clock if you want to hear kind of an extended play version. But most of you know that on June the 25th and 26th of 1876, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and about 650 men of the 7th Cavalry will attack a massive village located down in that valley where you see those trees and where you see that hayfield that's being baled down there. That was where the village was. 1.5 miles of Indian teepees. And by the way, there's going to be approximately 6,000 to 8,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho there under Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Of that village, about 1,500 to 2,000 are warriors. And the battle on the ridge that we're standing on today was over in less than 2 hours. But it is the high water mark of over 400 years of fighting between the Euro-Americans and Native Americans. And of course we know the reasons and causes for this. Of course it's over land and resources and the use of those resources. It's over cultural superiority. Those are some of the reasons, and of course something called greed. That's something that all of us are probably somewhat familiar with. We know that for right or for wrong, the United States government will try to control all the native tribes by forcing reservation lands. One such attempt is the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. It will set aside half the state of South Dakota as the Great Sioux Reservation, which included a place called the Black Hills. And while Red Cloud and many of the chiefs will sign that treaty and live on that reservation and draw the goods and annuities promised by the U.S. government, there's other men who want to have nothing to do with the reservation or the white man's ways. And those are going to be the guys down in this camp. Tatanka Ayatonka is in his mid-40s. We call him Sitting Bull today. At one time a great warrior, he's a spiritual leader at this time. He's trying to live the old way of life of hunting the buffalo and fighting with traditional enemies out in this region. By the way, the last buffalo herds of the United States of America are right here on the Crow Reservation. We also know that Sitting Bull down there is encouraging people to leave the reservation and come out here and fight along with him for the old way of life. We also know the people on the reservation are not being fed as promised, and it will not take much chiding from Sitting Bull to get them to leave. And when the Army comes out here in 1876, they will be shocked by the number of people gathered in these villages. Now down in that camp was another man. He's going to be 35 years of age. By the way, they said he never sang and he never danced. He always kept to himself. He was told by vision one time that when you go into combat, you always paint a lightning bolt on your face. You put white dots all over your body, which represent hailstones, and you tie a small stone under your left arm. You're to never take a scalp and wear one single feather in your hair. The man's name is Crazy Horse. He's one of the greatest warriors of the plains. He's also down in that village, again fighting for the old way of life. Now we know that back east in 1876 something terrible is happening, and some of you have witnessed this. It was called a recession. Y'all know about that? Yeah, a few years back it was 18% unemployment. Back in 1876 it was 40% unemployment. And everybody's going after the president. That never happens today, does it? Yeah. President Grant, what are you going to do about this situation? We've got all these people with no jobs. Well, Grant has a stimulus package. It's called the Black Hills. Except there's one small problem. The Black Hills belong to who? Yeah, by the Treaty of 1868, they belong to Lakota. Well, Grant says, well, I'll just buy the Black Hills. I got $6 million. They cannot come to a consensus on the price. And by the way, you got to get 2/3 of all the males to vote them away. And a lot of the males are not in their voting district. They're out here with Sitting Bull. And so Grant will just give them an ultimatum. He says, Sitting Bull, you got to get off this land get back to your reservation in South Dakota, and you better do it before the 31st of January, 1876. Otherwise, I'll consider you hostile, and I'll send the army out to punish you. Well, guess what Sitting Bull says? He says bull. He stays right out here, and so what we have is the campaign of 1876. Soldiers come from 3 directions to try to find Sitting Bull, punish him, send him back to the reservation. One group will leave from what we know is Bozeman, Montana. They'll never get close to this camp. Second group of soldiers leave from the other side of those mountains you see down in Wyoming. And they're going to come up over behind these mountains that you see right over to my right. Those are the Wolf Mountains. On the other side, that's Rosebud Creek. June the 17th, the week before this battle, a guy named George Crook and 1,000 bluecoats are having their morning coffee and they're playing cards. 1,000 warriors under Crazy Horse attack them. And that battle will go on for 6 hours, and they will shoot up over 30,000 rounds, and they will kill 10 on each side. They weren't very good shots. You know why? Because there's no money for practice, folks. That's one of the results of the recession. Well, we know that those men over there, those soldiers, are almost out of ammo and supplies. They go back down into Wyoming, and they're going to wait down there for a month and a half for resupply. The Indians down there that fought, they looked at that as a major victory because they've stopped the bluecoats. We know that Sitting Bull is going to move his camp right down here below us, where you see that I mentioned a while ago. As I mentioned, a huge camp of 1.5 miles of teepees. The day of the battle is going to be hot, 98 degrees. Kids are swimming in the river. Women are down there digging up wild turnips with ash sticks. Most of the warriors who will fight here are sleeping until after lunchtime because they've been dancing till the sun came up, celebrating the victory over Crook, social dances for the young people. Nobody in that camp is expecting an attack on the 25th of June. On the hills on the other side of the valley, 20,000 ponies grazing. It's the job of the young boys to drive those ponies to the teepees below if an alarm is sounded. Well, we know there's a third group of soldiers coming out here looking for this camp. They're going to leave from what we know is Mandan, Bismarck, North Dakota, from Fort Abraham Lincoln. 1,000 bluecoats under a guy who fought in the American Civil War. His name is General Alfred Terry. And by the way, Terry's a lawyer by profession. He knows nothing about fighting Indians. And under his command is a man who likes to fight. He's 36 years of age. He's from New Rumney, Ohio. And this man will win over 40 battles in the American Civil War for the North. His name is Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. He'll have 11 horses killed from enemy combat. Custer will be one of the youngest generals ever at age 23, a brevet brigadier general. They said it was easy to see Custer in combat in the Civil War. He wore his hair down to his shoulders, a big floppy hat, a velveteen uniform with lots of gold, and a red tie. One newspaper correspondent said Custer looked like a circus rider gone mad. But you could always see him leading his troops out there. He'll be coming out here with 650 men of the 7th Cav under Terry. Well, they'll see the trail coming this way. They will divide their forces. We know that Terry's going to come around the north with 400 men. Custer, you follow the Indian Trail. Maybe one of us will find it. And when they do find it, they're going to be shocked, as I mentioned, because while they were out here looking, those people are leaving the reservation. Sitting Bull's camp is getting bigger. We know the morning of this battle, the 25th of June, Custer will send up his Indian scouts to the top of those mountains over there. And you might ask, who are the Indians helping Custer? They're Crows and Arikaras, and they do not like the people down this village. Mortal enemies. And by the way, whose reservation are you on today? And this was the Crow reservation back in 1876. But Sitting Bull's more powerful, pushing the Crows off the reservation hunting for buffalo. I just made the story more complicated, didn't I? You got Indians fighting Indians to their land here, a little big one as well. Well, anyway, what do they see from those mountains 15 miles away with the naked eye? They can't see all the teepees because it's down the valley. They see the biggest pony herd they'd ever seen. And Custer comes up and looks around. He can't see much but smoke down there. He decides to rest his men. He's going to attack the following day. That was his plan. But then when he rides off the mountains, he finds out from his scouts, we've seen a Sioux hunting party. They've seen your bluecoats. They're going to report it to this camp. The camp will scatter, or they'll attack you in huge numbers. So George Custer decides to ride as fast as he can to get to this village before the hunting party does. And guess what he does? He sneaks up on 8,000 Indians, sleeping in on a Sunday afternoon. We know that he'll divide his forces and march toward this valley. On the other side of that brown hill, he's seeing a lot of dust coming up from the ridges. And by the way, the dust from 20,000 horses. The warriors don't know he's coming. They're still sleeping over there. And they see all the dust, and Custer believes that the village is running from him. And he would tell a man who fought in the Civil War, his name is Major Marcus Reno. This is his first Indian fight. He says, Reno, take 135 men and cross the river, attack whatever's in front of you. You'll be supported by the rest of the regiment. We know that Reno takes his men, and at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he will hit that village where you see those green trees down there. The warriors will quickly respond. They will drive Reno back into the trees, and then they're going to chase him with his men across the river down there 5 miles away. And by the way, he'll be chased by 600 warriors over 2 miles. Guess who's going to win that one? We know that Reno will lose about 25 soldiers, about 20 warriors killed down that fight. Reno is chased across to a high hill at the end of this road, which is today known as the Reno-Benteen battlefield. When he gets up there, what's left of his bloody command, here comes another soldier. His name is Captain Frederick Benteen. Behind him is all the ammunition. And they're going to dig in on that hill. They'll hear gunfire down here. And they will make a feeble attempt to get down here. We know that there will be 350 survivors down there, soldier survivors. The warriors will try to kill them for 24 hours, and the warriors pack up and leave. And they go towards those mountains you see behind me. And the reason they leave is they see more soldiers coming from the north. That will be General Terry and his 400 men. Of course, a lot of you asking what happened to Custer. Well, we know from Indian accounts that Custer comes down and tries to cross the river at a place called Medicine Tail Coulee. Your car will take you down there. They said he couldn't get across. There was gunfire, quicksand there. He pulls his men back along this ridge we're standing on. It's a half-mile long. At the end of the ridge, you will see some small bushes. Custer will leave 100 men under his brother-in-law, Lieutenant James Calhoun. And they'll put up a pretty good fight down there. According to the warriors, Custer and about 110 men on horseback rode behind this ridge and all the way down in this big ravine to my left, down to the river a second time, trying to get across. By the way, right across the river down there's 3,000 women and children. You may not know this, but in 1868 along the Washita River in Oklahoma Territory, Custer attacks a village that's this big, and he's completely outnumbered, he's completely surrounded, and he wins a major victory. How'd he do that? He captured 53 Cheyenne women, the battle was over with. Did y'all know that George Custer took hostages more times he fought Indians on the plains before this battle? Yeah. He won't get across. Victor's right across the river, folks. He can't get across. They're going to stop him. He'll fight his way back to the cemetery area. He'll take the high ground we're standing on right now. And he doesn't like what he sees down there at the other end of the ridge. Because all those warriors who defeated Reno converge on Calhoun Hill. And down there there's a man. He's a Cheyenne. His name is Lame White Man. He said, there's not many soldiers here. We can kill them all. Follow me. He'll lead a charge over the top of that hill. The soldiers fall like dominoes. By the way, on the back side, you'll see 60 white markers that show where individual soldiers were killed in combat. The reason they're lying over there today, or they were, is because a man with a lightning bolt in his face comes over that ridge. Crazy Horse has a Winchester. They said 40 soldiers shot at Crazy Horse and every bullet missed him. His medicine's working, folks. They will kill those soldiers in hand-to-hand combat on the backside of the ridge. Some of them try to get to this hilltop we're standing on. Most of them won't make it. They said at the end the warriors got behind every little hill out here and are pouring lead at the top of the hill we're on, including the hill right below us, where the cemetery is today. We find Indian cartridges lining up. They're picking off these soldiers up here. Custer can't let that happen. They said there was a bugle call, and all of a sudden 40 men on foot. They ran down and drove those warriors back, and they get left down there. At least 50 men where we're standing today. And they said those men begin to shoot their own horses. Because you see, there's nothing else to hide behind. Custer sent a message down to Benteen to get over here with the ammunition, but they're not going to get down here. Quiet, isn't it? Wasn't quite 140 years ago, folks. They said the gunfire sounded like someone was tearing a blanket in half. You would have heard the screams of horses and men and trumpet calls and eagle-bone whistles blown by those warriors. The warriors said we couldn't see the soldiers behind the dead horses. We just kept pouring bullets at the top of the hill. Then we launched thousands of arrows that fell like rain on this hilltop. They said after 30 minutes, the shots quit coming from behind these dead horses. And the warriors poured over the backside of the ridge and came up here and killed a few wounded soldiers up on top. It was over with in 30 minutes on this hillside. There was a young boy standing up here. He was killing some of the soldiers. His name was Big Beaver. He was a Cheyenne. He said, I looked down where the cemetery is today, and there were still 20 soldiers fighting. Remember the guys who came off the hill? He said they had run out of ammunition. They threw away their rifles, and they grabbed their handguns and revolvers. They began to run, folks. They began to run down towards this deep ravine which goes all the way to the river. A last chance of survival and hope to hide in the river brush. The warriors will chase them down. They will find 28 dead soldiers at the bottom of that ravine at the end of the trail. And they'll find one dead warrior on top of them. And down here, the battle of Little Bighorn was over with in 2 hours. How many warriors were killed here? We don't know for sure because their families took their bodies away and hid them down in that valley. If you will walk around the sidewalk today, you'll go into the sacred circle. That's the Indian Memorial. You'll see about 60 names of warriors that were probably killed here at Little Bighorn. We know that 5 miles away, there's 53 dead soldiers that are buried hastily. We know that Reno and Benteen survivors will have to come down here, and they will have only 10 shovels to bury 210 bloated bodies that laid in 100-degree temperature for 3 days. And they said it was a scene of sickening, ghastly horror. And it was difficult to recognize even your closest friend. They said we didn't dig holes. We put dirt on their faces and on their torsos. And in many cases, we laid sagebrush on their bodies because the wounded were more important than the dead. They had to get them back to Fort Lincoln. Right here, 6 feet from where I'm standing, folks, they'll find a man. His buckskin suit is gone. He's 36 years of age. His name is George Armstrong Custer. He's stripped of his clothing, and he's not scalped because his wife asked him to get a haircut before he left the fort. She had a nightmare about him being scalped in this expedition. So you can't get a hold of Custer's hair. They'll find a bloody bullet wound right through the left temple, probably the one that killed him. They said the blood had run down his mouth into his mustache. They said we looked for powder burns around that wound. Why would they do that? See if he had committed suicide. We found no powder burns, but we discovered another bullet hole right through his heart. No blood from that wound, probably post-mortem. And the warriors had taken a knife. They slashed his thigh muscle 6 inches to the bone. That way Custer can never get on a horse in the next life. The warriors believe if you mess a soldier's body up, that's the way they're going to come back. You take a man's eyes out, he can't see. You cut his hands off, he can't hold a weapon. Most importantly, you take a man's hair, you now own his spirit and his soul, he'll never come back to fight you again. Yes, the bodies are mutilated. They said it was hard to dig on top of this hill, so we took Custer's body off the top. We buried him on the side, where you see the shield down here. In the deepest grave on the battlefield of 18 inches. On the very top of the hill, they'll find Custer's younger brother, Thomas Custer. Fought for the Union in the American Civil War, and by the way, he'll win not 1 but 2 Congressional Medals of Honor. He was recognized by his initials on his arm, a tattoo. He's buried down there by George. 100 yards down the hill, they will find another Custer brother, Boston Custer, civilian contractor. Next to him, Custer's nephew, 18-year-old Audie Reed, who came along for summer vacation. Probably wished he'd stayed home in Monroe, Michigan. See, Custer wasn't planning on losing this battle. He brought the whole family along except for one brother. We know these men will lay out here for 1 year until they come back and take the officers back east, including George Custer, who was dug up and taken to West Point, New York. The rest of the soldiers are left on the battlefield for 5 years for the wolves and the cows to dig them up. And in 1881, the Army's getting a lot of bad press in the newspapers. They'll come out here and put this big shaft up here. It'll cost them $1,000 with all their names marked on it. And they'll dig a trench on all four sides. And they'll take every soldier they can find and put them in a mass grave, folks, right here. This is where the men of the 7th rest today. 9 years later, they'll put up these white markers you see on the battlefield for 5 miles, showing you where they died. As far as we know, there's no soldiers buried out there today. You also see red granite markers showing where Indian death sites are. By the way, this is the only battlefield in the entire world that has such individual markers. Many people ask me about all these white markers down below us where you see that flagpole. That is our national cemetery. It holds the remains of 5,000 veterans who served in the Indian Wars all the way up to Vietnam. It was officially closed in 1978. When you go down there today, you will see Indians and non-Indians buried side by side who served this country. We know the rest of the story, don't we? When the news gets back east, they will send out what they call Custer's Avengers, and they will quickly chase Sitting Bull's people to the reservation. With his people starving to death 1 year later, a guy named Crazy Horse gives up. So they try to put him in a guardhouse. He'll resist. And Crazy Horse is bayoneted to death. He'll die at age 36, the same age as George Custer. We know that Sitting Bull goes to Canada for 5 years until he finally gives up. The year they put this stone on the hill, he becomes a reservation Indian. And with the unrest on the reservation at Standing Rock in 1890, Indian police try to arrest him. There's a gun battle. He's shot and he's killed. To this day, we do not know exactly where his bones lie. So see, folks, this is a sad story. No matter what perspective you're looking at out here. You know, you'll go down the highway today, won't you? I'll stay here as I have for 27 summers. When the gates close, I'll come up here by myself. And I'll grab hold of this fence. And I'll try to use my imagination on what it was like 140 years ago to be a young Lakota Cheyenne boy. And you're living in a teepee and you camp out every day of your life. Some of you know what camping out is. Imagine doing that every day of your life. But what you notice is that your whole way of life is disappearing as the buffalo disappear. Millions are disappearing. And everything you need, 60 items, come from that animal. And yes, you're as a warrior supposed to go over here and fight the Crows and the Arikararas and take their horses and fight with them and count coup. But the night before this battle, you have another interest. You're interested in courting the Lakota girls next to you down there. And you'll go down to their tribe and they'll feed you and you'll dance all night till the sun came up. You'll come down here and take a bath in the Greasy Grass River. That's what they called it. You'll lay under that cottonwood tree and taking a nap, and all of a sudden you hear something that sounds like gunfire. And it's happening where you see those trees. You get on your horse. But before you get on your horse, you'll paint your face. You'll braid your hair if you have time, and you'll put on your best war clothing in case you're killed in this fight. That way you go into the next life dressed in your best. And you'll grab your bow and your arrows. You got about 25 arrows with metal points. They're not using stone. And you'll grab a 6-shot cap and ball revolver left over from the American Civil War. You got 6 shots for this battle. You'll grab your horse, you'll come up this ravine. You'll get off your horse, you'll crawl up through this grass trying to get close to these soldiers. And hanging around your neck is an eagle bone whistle. You'll blow that shrill instrument. And that's to evoke the ever warrior spirit to protect you in combat. And you try to get within range of these bluecoats on this hill. You'll blow that whistle. You'll crawl through the grass. The thing that you remember most of all, folks, is you heard your family and your elders hobbling and screaming and crying as you left the village. And that's going to make a big impression on your head here. But you know there's 2 sides to every story, isn't there? When you look at all those names up there, most of them are Irish. There's a whole lot of Germans up there too, folks. And you see, there's a reason why they're here. My name is Donahue. Imagine that. It's a good Irish name, folks. And I've been to Ireland, my home country, many times. And the people in Ireland were starving to death because they relied on one thing, like the Indians did. They relied on a potato. And in the 1840s, 1 million Irishmen will starve to death. Another million will flee the country. And of the many trips I've been to Ireland, I will stop whenever I see a sign that says famine cemetery. I'll get out of my car and I'll look at those beautiful green fields, and you don't see one single name. You don't see one single marker. And there's thousands of people buried under green grass. And those young boys said, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to end up in a mass grave with no name. And they'll come to America, the land of milk and honey. When they get off the boat in New York City, they see signs in the window that said, Irish need not apply. We want you to go home. You're taking our jobs. So you'll hold up your hand for $13 a month, and you'll join the U.S. 7th Cavalry. And it'll take you 6 weeks on horseback to get out here. Your butt's hurting and your back's hurting. And the night before, you're on the other side of those mountains over there, and you're going to ride till 2 o'clock in the morning. Then you're going to drop off your horse dead tired and sleep for 2 hours. And then 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to wake up. And you're going to have breakfast. It's going to consist of a cracker, probably left over from the Civil War, and some greasy salt pork. And you can't drink your coffee because the water's too alkaline. And then your commander says, get on your horse, we're riding. And you're going to ride as fast as you can for 15 miles till you end up on this ridge. And you're likely to end up on top of this hill. And you're wearing a wool coat and it's 98 degrees. And you've never fired a weapon in combat and you've never seen an Indian up close. As you look at your belt, you can see that 100 rounds of ammunition slowly disappearing quickly. Actually quickly disappearing. As you look over the back of that horse, all of a sudden something hits you in the chest. It feels like a hot ball-peen hammer. You stick your hand in your jacket and your hands are sticky with your own blood. As you look over that dead horse, you see all these colored faces. They're screaming, they're blowing those whistles. And to you, they look like demons from hell. And you begin to realize as you lie on top of this hill behind a dead horse that you had to shoot a few minutes earlier. You begin to realize that every one of those painted faces wants to take a piece of you home literally. Folks, that's not a romantic sight, is it? It's not like the movies we see on our big screens. It's not like the paintings we see done in oils in our museums that glorify this death here, folks. But that's exactly what happened on this hillside 140 years ago. What I tried to do just now was to humanize the story. Because one thing I see lacking sometimes in America today is something called empathy. Y'all know what I'm talking about? That's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes for a few minutes and not see it through just your lens. Because folks, if we can begin to do that, I won't have to lower that flag to half-mast as many times I've had to recently. Folks, there's lessons to be learned if we'll listen and look in the mirror. Because when you look at all these stones out here, they're not just pieces of rock. Every one of these stones shows where a man died in combat. And for some people, these stones represent the passing of an entire way of life. So when you look at these rocks today, think about that. Honor them. Think about them. Ponder them. And wherever you're heading today, have a safe journey. Thank you for listening to my talk.